Good morning, y'all. It's Timidity. I feel pretty good, even though I've been eating non-stop spicy food and maybe consuming just a smidgen too much of a certain. Well, we'll talk about it later. Let's just say Mama needs water and she does not need any more Korean food. I think it's important and necessary to look up into like serial killer backstories. The reason why is because it can kind of show you what went wrong. I told this to a girl when we were socializing at an event. It was a pretty fun time. She's like, "So what are you into? Like, what do you do for fun?" And I kind of thought, shit, what hobbies do I fucking have? And then, but I thought on it really hard, and I said, ooh, I love to research certain topics. I told her that I like to research like courtesans and like kings and queens of the past and like how they got through certain struggles. But I also told her that I like to also research serial killer backstories. And she gave me like a scared look, and I just was like, oh no, not in that way. Don't worry, I'm not like a fangirl for Dahmer or whatever. I just think it's really interesting to know like exactly how the monster is created, like how it started from just a normal kid to like, what happened in their life that made them even think to go down the path that they did. And she got all pissy and she was like, well, I think they just chose to do that. And I wanted to say, well, durr, you fucking stupid cunt. It's not like someone forced a knife into their hands and said kill, excluding in cults where they actually did do that. But I think it's interesting because you get to learn the inner workings of someone who's psychopathic or an egomaniac or who has low self esteem or who did this, and that just because they felt like it. Some people kill because they felt like it. Some people kill out of self defense and then shit happen. I don't know. It's like there's a lot that goes into it. I think it should not be dismissed. Why? Because we dismiss a lot of shit. There's a huge wave of children who are being groomed into basically supporting like Aryan beliefs. Like, there shouldn't be 6 year olds or 9 year olds on Discord showing their face profile and being like, see, perfect angled nose, bright blue eyes. This is the most Aryan I've looked, guys. Like, that's not how it should be. It's like you need to be on Club Penguin, and we need to look into why that happened. There's a lot of reasons why that happened. They took away a bunch of fucking flash games. Any good games you want have a bunch of fucking microtransactions, or you have to be online and pay for PlayStation Plus or certain services to use them. There are free games for kids, but the big ones, like, you have to have money, or there is like no protections in place for the kids, so they could be talking to anybody on their little headset. I know how that was like because I was one of those kids talking to anybody on my headset. And there's just fucking, like, they start off small. Like, imagine you're a kid who doesn't have a lot of friends. You don't have the best home life. Like, your parents probably shouldn't have had you when they're staying together for the kid, but they're also like making your life hell. And then when you go to school, there's not much to do. You don't have friends. You don't have anyone on the playground. Sadly put, most commonly, if that happens to you, you're gonna get drawn into some dark shit. It happened to me. I know how that was like, and let's just say I saw a lot of things online that I most definitely shouldn't have, and it was gross and messed up. But guess what? I remember that my family didn't give me the support system I needed. They actually made the situation worse. And they made my life worse, and they found out. And so, guess what? It made me rely even heavier on those fucked up people I was talking to online. What a strange childhood that was. Mm. But yeah, even then, before, when Flash games still worked and I could just spend all day like playing dating sims or Super Secret or Club Penguin or this, and that, I was having a blast. I didn't feel the need to be online in certain spaces or on chat rooms talking to people until middle school hit. And then I was, because you know what? I wanted people I could laugh with and talk to and feel good around, because I was always bullied, always isolated, and more. And it did not help that my thoughts were getting darker. I forget how old I was when I was first suicidal. I was like 12, 13. And even before then, I just started watching horror movies as a coping mechanism, and I started picturing the people who bullied me as the people who died. I liked the movie Carrie. I liked the movie Orphan. I liked movies where the bullies got hurt back hard. And that's what I enjoyed. I don't know. Let's just say I could have been a very scary person if I wanted to. I really could have. I really fucking could have. You don't even know how bad it could be right now. Lucky for me, eventually I had pretty good high self-confidence regardless. Like, you actually would be shocked. I had pretty high self-esteem. I still made sure that even if I couldn't rely on other people to always bring me joy, I still kept up my other hobbies like drawing or singing to myself or dancing, and I still tried my best to get through it. And I eventually made friends, and then life got easier, then hard again, then easier, then hard again. And it had its waves, and that's how I am the way I am now. Not everyone can overcome trauma very easily. But if you look into the backstories of some of these people who like lost their fucking shit, you kind of understand why. Because some people have your backstory but worse. So then it's like, oh, hey, this is someone who has like extreme child neglect to the point where they were like forced to eat dog shit, or like starved endlessly, beaten endlessly, not forced to drink alcohol and cigarettes. Like they were not raised in a loving home environment. So how would they know how to be a loving and safe person to others? Unless they like really, really had some sort of strong perseverance. Like, me, I don't know. I still had some moments of love from my parents, and I also had TV and stuff. So, and I still was friends with people who still had like good bonds with their families. So I definitely knew like how being a good person could be like and was supposed to be like, even if I didn't have that luxury all the time. Some people never got afforded that luxury. They were just raised in bumfuck racist areas. They didn't know any better. And then it's like, yeah, it's like imagine you already have like any mental condition. Like you could have autism or unchecked schizophrenia or rage issues, and then you're just like forced to suppress that to survive in your environment, but you're not like allowed to. I'll put it this way. If sometimes I hear the stories of people that I meet and I just fucking cry because they shouldn't have gone through that fucking shit. And so sometimes I'll see these stories and I'll read about their back stories or their biographies or their documentaries on or something, and you'll just kind of be like, damn, you went through all fucking that. And then they'll talk about their later years. It's like, okay, the vulnerable time, your hormones kick in and ramp up and stuff. If you've still been alone and feeling fucked up and not given the right lessons in life, and now you're like, what, 12 or something, and then you already have people giving you drugs or you're buying drugs because you don't know how to be happy anymore. Your brain doesn't know how to feel like it should be living. You don't want to live unless you're on drugs or doing nonstop alcohol or smoking nonstop cigarettes or maybe causing pain to other things like breaking shit to suppress your anger or hurting animals because you think it's funny or just because you want to feel big and tough. And then imagine you can't get that, like no one's checking you for that because you're not in a good environment. And then people around you, bullying got worse. People got worse. You notice that no one gives a fuck about you. Your parents probably got worse or abandoned you. And then let's just say there's usually like a buildup. And it's like a slow boiling pot where eventually, as you read more and more about their lives, you're kind of like, you're not saying what they did was good, but you're saying that you can kind of understand how a very weak, vulnerable child could live like a solid like 18 years of nonstop hell, and that can fuck with their developmentalness so much that it just like it would be like trying to untangle like 36 necklaces that are just stuck in a ball. It would take fucking forever to peel through each and individual layer to get through the bottom of it. But when I read these stories, I just think to myself, damn, if only you had access to someone who was caring. Like if you had a psychiatrist who could be like, hey, listen, come to me for therapy every week, we'll talk you through this, here's some pills for when you see things, let's unwrap those thoughts of yours. And then one serial killer I read about, like his, when you're horny and stuff, you get worse thoughts. And sometimes, especially when you're young, you can get involved in some very, very dark things. That's why we have so many porn addicts these days, because a lot of kids are just kind of like, I'm on the internet unsupervised at a young age. And then they see things that they see are cool, like a live leak video or like a porn. And then they wank it all the time, or they go, oh, that's cool. And then you might get a weird fetish, and then eventually that ramps up, and then eventually, what if it's like, okay, now you can't see a human woman and get hard anymore, and you're like, what? You're like fucking 15? Now you're gonna get into some weirder shit. And then let's just say, I'm getting really scared for the women and the young girls that are like, I am. Especially with like the brutality I see in some of these porn videos, and it's like, Jesus Christ, you mean to tell me that there's someone out there watching this and enjoying this? This is basically rape content. This is disturbing and sick. And no, it's like, fuck, dude. It's like, you're not supposed to be so young watching this shit. I'm someone who's very pro porn. I think there's still a limit on what you should be watching. Abso-fucking-lutely. And if you're like to me, you're just a snowflake. No, if I were to list out some of the shit I was reading between the ages of 12 and 17, you would clutch your fucking pearls. and it didn't have a good effect on my mental health, imagine how it would have on the mental health of someone who, one, doesn't have a favorable opinion of women, two, doesn't have anyone in their life to tell them that it's wrong, or even, like, maybe they're even in environments where abuse against women is normalized too. And then three, it's like, imagine someone sees the same shit that I saw, and instead of being horrified, they get their dick hard. That is like, that can lead to a lot of bad things in people. Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, when you're young and vulnerable, you can make a lot of bad decisions and do a lot of bad things, and it can fuck with you for the rest of your life. Some people, though, it can be so ingrained in them that they don't see it as an issue. Like, if you're someone who's mentally stable to a certain extent, you could be like, for example, me, even though I'm not always the most mentally stable, I still had enough where like, even from a very young age, I was like, huh, my mother's being extremely mean to me. I already know that I'm going to leave the second I turn 18. I'm going to leave and not, like, have any of them in my life anymore, because this is unnecessarily cruel and unjust behavior. Some people don't have that epiphany because they're too young to know better, and they've been groomed to only accept their family. And, like, some people will just be in abusive relationships and not know how to leave, or some people will be the abuser in relationships because that's how they've been shown what love is like. Some people resort to drugs before they've been resorted to hugs or, like, affection or kindness or care, so it's no wonder they grow up and they think anyone who is showing them love is either manipulative or a fucking idiot, because hey, your mother didn't love you that way, your dad didn't love you that way, no one showed you love your whole life, and then someone just out the bat comes out like, oh hey, I want to be your friend and you seem great. It's like, some people can be like, oh god, that's amazing. Some people can be like, get the fuck away from me. You're trying to fuck with me. I don't know. There's a lot of nuance in this situation. If you're staying this long as I'm talking about it, I appreciate it. But what I'm saying is, I know what I went through as a kid, and I know that I had a lot of opportunities where there was a fork in the road where I could have been a much worse person. I remember in middle school, there was this kid bullying me, and I almost stabbed him with a piece of glass when we were making, like, mosaics at our school. I very narrowly dodged his hand, though, and I instead chose not to, but I swear to God, I was so angry and so embarrassed, and the other kids laughed at me. But at the same time, it's like, how do I put this? I knew that I had to make that choice, even though the easy choice to do as, like, a fucking 13-year-old who's been endlessly fucking bullied and sees no light in her path whatsoever and can't catch a fucking break and is always miserable, always insulted, always just ugh. The world at that point in time was not very nice for people like me. I could have easily stabbed that kid in the hand, but what would have happened? He probably would have gotten some sort of artery burst. I probably would have never met the wonderful people in my life going forward. I probably would have been in juvie, and I probably, no offense, I was already not doing well mentally as a kid. Imagine if I killed a kid and or stabbed a kid in the hand, left school, got beaten by my parents, got sent to juvie or whatever the fuck. Yeah, I don't think I'd be on the brightest path ever. You know, trials and tribulations, but it's okay because I didn't stab him when I was 12. I get to be here at age 24 just living my fucking life, having fun, far away, and I hardly even remember that kid's name anymore. Also, I look better than most of those bitches. And then, meanwhile, as for, uh, yeah. I had a lot of chances to be a very dark kid when I wanted to be. And that darkness still kind of is a little bit inside of me. But on the bright side, I didn't use it for bad, I used it for good. I could have easily, at any point, lost my fucking rocker. I could have done a lot of evil shit. You know, I was the type of kid that knew everyone's names, even though they never knew mine. I knew addresses, even though they never even knew, like, my name at all. I could have been a very disturbed kid. I already was, plenty of ways. There were still some moments that, like, let's not talk about it too much. So what can I say? I can sympathize whenever I hear stories of people who weren't quite as lucky. Because even I, narrowly, there were so many times I could have easily taken myself off this planet or taken a few other people with me. When I was younger, I fantasized all the time about, for years, just like walking down the dark hallway into my mom's room, stabbing her fucking senseless, and then doing the same to my stepdad, and then leaving without a trace to just have a new life somewhere. And guess what? She's alive to this day because maybe it was fear, maybe it was disgust, maybe it was just me trying to convince myself that my life would get better and that one day I would not have to just stay in a shitty environment that was fucking up my mental health with shit on the walls. just because rent was high and I didn't know where to go and didn't have a job or was too young to have a job. And yeah, the world's not the most good place for people, especially if you have certain circumstances, like if you're poor, if you're of a certain race, if you have mental instability. A lot of things don't work in your favor. Gender also is one of those interesting things because, I don't know, it's a very niche thing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, if I read a story about it, it's like, okay, this guy is a killer. He did very wrong in his life. But at the same time, someone else did him wrong in advance, and I'd like to know how, so that he never has to face a fork. Like, so that any future kids I meet, or any future people I meet, if I feel like there's a fork in the road, and they're about to like do the wrong decision instead of the right one, even if the right one's hard, I'd rather them do the right one because the wrong one will get them sent to jail or suffering or off this planet, and we can't have that, you know? I think that's also why I'm kind of like, some of my friends I've had are mentally unstable. I sympathize with them. It depends on like what they've done and what they do. Like I'm friends with people who have autism and rejection sensitive dysphoria and rage and stuff. And so because they don't know how to handle that and they don't have a lot of support system, sometimes I've had to talk to them when they feel like they're about to like punch a fucking wall or punch a hole through a person's head or pull a taxi driver. And I'm kidding for the last one, even though sometimes they act like it. And I just kind of am like, I have to kind of recoup them and just give them an ear and listen to them and give them advice. And I guess it did work because they've been having, they went back to AA for a bit. And instead of like, beating the shit out of random people and trying to like, you know, letting their rage overtake them because they weren't given like proper system growing up, and also even throughout their adult life to really know how to suppress their rage or handle it correctly in a world full of people that weren't meant to understand you because he also has autism. So, if I can just be an ear to listen to and talk to you, that's great. And I guess it works because now instead of doing that, he's like, you know what? I probably need to take more vitamins and do more walks and hang out with some friends, the ones who actually listen to me and care about me. And I should take probiotics because I'm having gut issues and it's messing with my brain and it's making him function better. I'm also usually the support system for any women, men, anyone I meet, but also women, especially. If you're a really hot girl, sometimes you don't want to admit when you're feeling low self esteem for this reason, that reason, or the other reason. Like, one of my friends was talking to me about going to this show and that she had a crush on the lead singer of, and whatever. I'm not gonna say much more about it, but I did kind of tell her it's like, oh, do you want to go because he ghosted you and because like not to offend you? Is it because you kind of like want to like to be like get his attention and see if he ghosted you on purpose and like maybe make him chase you again? And I said that fully, and I told her, it's like, I know how that is. I'm already dealing with that. I told her that's why I'm going to this comedy show tonight, because I'm hoping the nigga I have a crush on is going to be there, and I can do that. I can just look sexy and desirable and distant, and then he'll want me. And I know deep down he's probably not going to show up, and that probably wouldn't even fucking work, but I still want to try. And then she was like, yes, you get me. I don't know, I just get people, because I've been through a lot of shit. Sometimes you are desperate or down bad or downtrodden and there's no one to help you. So if I can help people big or small, that's wonderful. That ties into what I was saying, I guess, only in the sense of, yeah. Also, like I said, the Aryan discords and stuff. Like kids who, yeah, funny enough, I've met multiple, because, I'm friends with white dudes and shit. Not just white dudes, also black women and a lot of other people. But simply put, they'll talk about how when they were young, they were in the suburbs or whatever. They didn't get to meet many other black people aside from like what they saw in the movies, and their schools didn't teach them about black people or how they were like, or black history or white supremacy or slavery or Jim Crow laws, none of that. So, white black people were just like a thing that they knew about but never met because they were in bumfuck middle of nowhere suburbs. And then, but they also didn't have any friends. They didn't have a great support system. They went online. And you know what they found online? Cool white dudes who will tell you all about how you need to know about the world to survive and how you're actually very cool. And hey, look the way your nose is shaped. You're very nice and strong like the Aryan men. You should aspire to be strong like us. Also, hey, you know what? You also deserve love, kid. And then these men will get into these kids' heads and be like, you deserve love, actually. Any strong man like you is entitled to love. You actually need a subservient woman with pale skin and bright eyes and she's nice to you. Women should be nicer to you, right? Like, why do they dress the way they do? Why do they act? And then they say these things where they just slowly plant the seed of like misogyny or racism, or they'll post one too many racist memes and then they'll be like, you know what's funny? We should say slurs. Fuck it, it's a free country and none it's not like they're around anyway. And you know what? Black people are kind of crazy too. Have you seen what the blacks get up to? Like, if anything, we're kind of good compared to them. And then the next thing you know, let's just say if that shit doesn't get unchecked, then you'll have these little white kids that just a few years before they were super cool, super nice. They liked Kurt Cobain and Linkin Park and were innocent and like, pretty fly for a white guy. And then like give it like a few years and then suddenly they're going around calling people nignogs unprovoked and just like posting monkey memes on the internet for fun and then saying George Floyd deserved what he fucking got. Like really fucking evil shit. And like, some luckily the friends I've had usually never went that fucking far. They usually got to the point where it's like, okay, offensive meme here, 4chan post there. Like, but really they just knew like they were super lonely. And then guess what? They went to college and had friends for the first time in ages. And then they were forced to like room with people who were, guess what, people of color or trans or gay. And at first they were a little scared, but then guess what? They were like, oh shit, never mind. Trans people are cool. My best friend is trans, and he's awesome. You know what? Oh, hey, I also got my little bisexual housemate. He's cool. Oh, Audrey's bisexual too. Oh, hey, Jordan, how are you doing? And then next thing you know, they'll kind of be like, oh, every belief system that I've been taught was actually wrong, and they should have not been doing that to me when I was a young child. That's how they get you. It's important to learn how they do it so that you can prevent it. Not enough people are taking the steps to prevent it or even acknowledge it. And that's why we have such a huge influx of all, like, if you're, like, it's actually scary. Like, you will meet young fucking, it's like, they should not, it's like, nah. We can also blame adults who don't like check what their kids are watching because it's like, why the fuck is your 7-year-old child watching Chainsaw Man? They don't even know what's going on. That's not for kids. And I don't know, there's layers to this shit, man. I'm just saying that it's messed up. So when I hear like, that's why we have like caseworkers and shit these days and whatnot, or people who have psychiatric skills trying to make connections with mental health community networks and mutual aid, because people are starting to realize that what happens to you in life doesn't need to affect the rest of your life. And if there's certain things we can nip in the bud or things we can cut you out from before it gets too late, we are going to do it, you know? Like, and I'll say this before anyone gets mad at me, but I'm sure I'll get the comments anyway. I'm not saying that just because like someone was like some fucked up teenager with a fucked up home life and fucked up this or that, like just that, and decided to do meth when they were 14 and constantly smoking weed and doing drugs, and teachers didn't care, and like they were getting bullied and had a bad home life. I'm not saying that means they have to kill people. I'm not saying they just like needed to pick up a knife and do what they did, but it's something to consider. It's like they were given a fork in the road, like, and they shouldn't have ever been at a point where they needed to choose between, do I keep suffering through the evil, or do I take it into my own hands in a way that's really fucked up? Or they might not even see it fucked up. Why? Because there's no support system. And the thing that ties in some of these stories is that you also notice, like, oh, this may have happened because this was the type of world we lived in, with this, or that. There's a lot of factors to it. And also, some murderers get entirely swept under the rug, or like with their cases, like even if they do seem logistically sensical, But as I was gonna say before I interrupted myself, not every person with a fucked up home life does have to be entitled to the right to kill, maim, hurt, rape, none of that. No. But at the same time, I do notice a trend of, oh, okay, so this is where CPS should have gotten involved. This is where the school should have gotten involved, mandated reporters and all. This is where like there should have been more anti-bullying or anything. This is where someone safe should have given a fuck that a child was hurt. This is where someone should have noticed he was doing drugs and recommended him to rehab or done this or that. No one showed care, and so he didn't show care in life either. How do you expect love to grow in a person who has never shown it? You have to try. Anyway, not all monsters just spawn out of the blue. Some of them are created by society. And I know you're probably thinking that's a pathetic statement. I don't really care what you think. Continuing on. some cases also are gaining more popularity because some people are kind of like realizing how fucked up the situation was. I heard about the Hernandez twins. I think that's the name. I forget about it specifically, but I did remember I heard about it before, and it was something about their parents molesting the kids, if I recall correctly. And not even I was younger, I thought it was fucked up, but so many more people were just like, fuck them, they killed their parents. No reason to ever kill someone. I mean, getting molested your whole fucking life, but and then like it's like I don't know. It's simply put, it's like fuck you. I'm not just. I don't know. I hate when some people just are like, this should have never happened ever, and these men are totally fucking evil. I mean, they were nonstop being abused, like endlessly, disgustingly abused by some terrible fucking people. Like, come on now. In the Gypsy Rose Blanchard story. Simply put, it's like, yeah, that bitch was giving her nonstop medicine she didn't need and making her sick and just to get popular on fucking TV and shit. Oh my god. And just, it's like, what? She can't have a little bit of candy without you ripping out all her fucking teeth and just disturbed woman. So whenever people say Gypsy Rose is a bad person because she kind of helped organize her mom getting killed, I don't give a shit in that situation. It's like if someone tortured you for most of your fucking life, yeah, yeah, you can. I don't, yeah. It would make sense that you got tortured your whole fucking life and you would kind of like snap back at some point and go crazy on your attacker. You know, like if we support that shit in horror movies, why wouldn't we support that in real life? Because it's not like she really felt safe or able to leave otherwise, did she? And like, but then again, it sucks that she even had to make that decision. I wish that there was some sort of alternate reality where, but I don't know, there's not an alternate reality where her little boyfriend does just simply like take her out the fucking house and leaves her mom behind, and then they expose her online for all her evil misdeeds or whatever. I don't know. That's just one example. Aileen Wuornos, people talk about her because, back then in her time period, they were like, oh, she says that every man she killed tried to rape her. What is that many men trying to rape you? I hate to break it to you. It's not that hard to find rapists. It's not. Like, you could just take a fucking walk at night and you'll get catcalled so many fucking times. Like, Jesus. It's like, and that could just be like on the block of a street alone or just within the first, like, fucking 5 block radius of your neighborhood, you can have that experience. So if she's traveling across the fucking country and she meets like 7 different dudes who's like, and also some people also have the mindset of, oh well, she wasn't very pretty, why would they want to rape her? Rapists don't give a fuck about age, race. They don't even give a fuck about species. That's why there's cases about goats and ducks getting raped and viciously killed and stuff. Because, yeah, dude, it's like, simply put, you don't have to be seen as attractive to get raped. It's about power, it's not about lust. And also, even if there was an aspect of lust in it, it's like, okay, they just see her as a whole. They see her as a victim that they can make and take and then maybe kill. So I'm just saying, I don't know the full details of her case, so I'm not going to comment fully on it. I will just say I don't like how people swept certain things under the rug because statistically it was pretty possible. Like, yeah, a lone woman traveling by herself or with like a friend or whatever across the whole fucking country. Yeah. Not to mention her mental issues that should have been checked at any point. I'm just saying, we as a society need to care about people, even those who we find to be like the absolute worst, the underdogs. Like, if you don't give a shit about the mentally ill, but you also complain about crackheads, you're a fucking idiot. Why? Because you should probably, if you really don't want crackheads on your street, maybe you should pair out with some fucking community outreach and be like, hi, I know this dude, he needs help, he screams on my corner all the time. Do you think that there's a way you could like get services arranged for him or help him out? Or like, there's options, dude. Like, not 100% all the time, but guess what? And if there aren't and you have the funds or ability or community to try to fix it, then try your best. Also, sometimes people with mental instability are still pretty nice. Like, I remember I was walking down the street giving out free food coupons to the homeless. This one dude was screaming at the top of his lungs to every motherfucker in the city he could. And I just was like, oh, excuse me. And then he stopped screaming at the top of his lungs and was like, oh, yes. And then I said, oh, hi, I have a free food coupon to 7-Eleven right down the street. You can get any, like, pizza or wings you want. Do you want that? Sorry for interrupting you. And he was like, oh, no, it's okay. I appreciate that. I can't eat processed foods like that. But I'm grateful. And then he went back to screaming and stuff. But then again, the people in that city fucking suck. So I also understand. It's like a bunch of assholes. I don't know. That's just like a quick, Hell, actually, I have known people to do drugs and stuff. I remember once I was in a meth tent and I came out the other side completely fine, completely safe. Because doing drugs doesn't make you a bad person. Sometimes it's just something people turn to in hard times. And just to clarify, I'm not saying that just because you have a fucked up life or backstory means that you have to be a fucked up bad person. I'm just saying not everyone has the luxury of knowing how to be nice or how to be kind or what is good and what is bad. But I was very lucky that I was able to go in a tent full of people with fucked up lives who were homeless and doing nonstop meth, who still managed to be happy and respectful and non-misogynistic. But that's probably because they were fostered to actually know and care about women. And like not everyone is so lucky where they're able to. It's worth paying attention. Also, I guess in terms of some serial killer backstories, like I said, time period is a thing. Like I watched a documentary about this guy in the 70s who was gay and homosexual. Now, people suspected that he was, and so he got hate crimed often. People would disrespect the fuck out of him and vandalize his property, throw bricks in his windows and shit. And he would just be minding his business at home, just trying to relax, all alone, with his fucking porn tapes. And, simply put, it's like, okay, the effects of porn on the mind, not to mention the endless torment and bullying, and, like, you can't be anywhere in your town feeling safe. A smart person would have fucking moved, in my opinion. Like, people forget they have other choices. But either way, time period, and you can't escape some people who are just fucked up. Now, let's just say that later on in the story, it shows that he was suffering from certain mental conditions that were worsening, like extreme delusion, maybe even psychosis to an extent. He wasn't taking proper care of himself, and he was watching weird gay porn movies that had kind of rapey plots that were a bit disturbing. So then, he was fantasizing about, ooh, I know, I could just ooh, that would be hot if I could take a young man and make him discover his sexuality. Then he'd be like me, and then I can seduce him and we could be lovers and I would be happy and I wouldn't just have to suffer alone like this. Let's just say this next part is extremely morbid and it's disgusting. I'm not excusing the killer's actions. Let's just say he didn't just do killing, and let's just say he found some teenage boy was fucking up his property with his friends, and then the man ran outside. The friends of the teenage boy got away, but the teenage boy didn't. But the old man, he just was like, "Hey, hey, kid, here, don't worry, don't worry. Here, come inside. We could just bond. I'm not gonna hurt you." And the teenage boy did, and the teenage boy was scared, because he didn't want to get he had a fucked up home life too. He didn't want to get yelled at by his parents or whatever for hate climbing a house. So they went inside, they had a beer, they talked. Allegedly, it went well. And I wish the story could have just ended there. I wish it could have been some amazing tale where it's like a kid hate crimes a guy, but the guy is forgiving, and then they sit together, have a beer, just simply talk and have a lovely conversation. And then the guy leaves the house like, oh, you know what? Maybe gay people are fine, and maybe that guy's pretty cool. Sadly, it doesn't. The story, I don't even want to talk about it because it's a little disgusting. Let's just say he let's just say that teenage boy did not deserve what he got. And let's just say the old man's fantasies he wanted to make a reality. So he thought that if he tied up that child and then did things to him, that it would be hot, like the movies. It didn't. It backfired hard. The kid was just disgusted and traumatized and irritated. And then the guy, realizing his mistake and snapping out of his disgusting delusion, he realized, oh shit, I just sexually assaulted this teenage boy. And if I let him go, I'm gonna get fucking killed. And things were already bad before. And then let's just say a teenage boy lost his life in the worst way possible. And then let's just say that guy rightfully got the death penalty. But something about that just makes me sad all along. Well, of course it would. It's fucking murder of an innocent child. Or, no, still innocent. A brick through the window is fucked up, but it's still a child. Very young. It didn't have to be that way. And I'm sad that it did. And the man is a disgusting fucking pervert and deserves to burn in hell. But I will say, I hate that society was so fucking homophobic that this guy couldn't just vibe in peace with his sexuality without needing to get constantly disturbed. And also, why the weird fucking porn is worth looking into too. Because why the fuck were they selling that? It just makes people more demented and sick in the head, twisted, and it's not good to fantasize about that shit casually. It's very bad. Once you fantasize about violating people, it's just no. No. That's how a lot of very bad things in this world exist. Anyway, continuing on into the last bit of this, here's one that actually I feel like is truly a sympathizable story. There was a story about these two twins. They grew up in a heavily, heavily, heavily abusive environment, so they could only rely on each other. Two twin girls that were basically sometime in the like 1800s, like late 1800s or something, in Britain or whatever. And they were already, if I recall, they were Italian and living in a British area. And they were already facing like heavy discrimination, abuse from their family, physical and possibly even sexual, and being constantly neglected. So they had to rely on each other to be each other's caretakers. This sadly resulted in multiple things. The twins, basically seeing each other as the only people they could rely on, had an incestuous relationship. It's debatable on if the slightly younger, wait, they weren't twins. Well, I call them twins because they're only a year apart anyway. But simply put, the younger twin, she basically, it's debatable on if she was forced into the relationship by the older sibling and just didn't feel like she could leave because, it's your only support system in a fucked up world. And if she says she wants to date you and love you, and if you know that if you stopped, then you lose everything. It's sad that or maybe it was consensual. It's still debated, but either way, it's still sad. And then, simply put, they grew up and they were also considered very hideous. So it's like you're a hideous woman in a society that hates hideous women, poor women, broke women, ugly women. And like, it's not like some men are going to come and rescue you and save you and marry you. So you have to work. They went to work for this like extremely wealthy, like British family. The headmistress of the household was super abusive towards these girls, and then she also let her young daughter, who was like 11 or so, be extremely mean and callous as well. Terrible family to work for. Extremely, like, one of them even got pushed down the stairs, if I recall correctly, of their huge, massive staircase. It's terrible. And they went through a lot. They worked there for fucking years. I forget how many years, but almost like a decade. I could be wrong. And to sum up this story, eventually there was a time where everybody in the house was going to be out of town. The women were going away to another city or something for like a week. And so the twins, they were like, you know what, let's have fun. We don't have fun often. Our lives are terrible. We're just two older women, unmarried, and we love each other. How about we have fun? They snuck into the headmistress's closet and they just had a girls' day. They were just trying on her clothes and jewelry and like using her fancy bath products and like relaxing in the home, lounging. They weren't cleaning, they were just having fun and having sex and stuff. The issue is the headmistress came home with her daughter a few days too early. And when she saw the sisters having sex and then also being all using her fancy makeup and shit, she went on a violent, violent outburst of rage. And then so did the young girl, because the young girl, simply put, was already fucked up in the head and didn't have the best caretaker. So she was just kind of happy to just be fucking up the twins too. Next thing you know, let's just say the twins overpowered them and then clobbered them both to death with like a mallet and left them so disfigured that they could barely figure out who the fuck the bodies were. And then when they were trying to clean it up, the husband came home, and then let's just say, yeah, one got life in prison, the other one had 31 years in prison, and the sisters never saw each other again. And by the time the younger one got out, the older one died, so they went the rest of their lives after that fucking day, never ever seeing each other, not even in court. It's fucked up what happened to everybody around, and I guess I like to look at the bigger picture and be like, okay, what happened here that led to that? It was the racism. It was the fucked up home environment that led the girls to be incestuous. It was the bigotry. It was the misogyny. It was the shame around sex. And it was also, it's like, yeah, I get it though. You come home and see someone in your clothes, you want to beat the shit out of them and be like, get the fuck out. You just fire them. You don't try to maim them. You just fire them. But then also, it's like, yeah, it was their home and their place to live, and they had a mental breakdown and snapped. But I don't know. There was like layers to it. Homophobia, just, I don't know, something about when you hear about their backstory and you read about it in depth and all they suffered throughout their time of being alive with that family, it makes sense that there would be such a deep hatred in them. And it should have never gotten to that point. I wish the world was a kinder place all around. I know it's kind of hard. I know it's like not, but it's like people can try. You know, there has to be people around you that are willing to be supportive and kind and nice and put you on the right path. Otherwise, you're not going to get far. It's not going to work in your favor. Like, yeah, people get groomed into fucked up situations often. Or people have unchecked mental instability that can worsen. And then it doesn't help if you're just in like a decade or a generation that's just like, get the fuck over it, rub some dirt on it, shut the fuck up about it, no one cares. It's a luxury to be in a generation where we now have rights and access to a lot of things that we think we don't. You're only a Google away from being able to, like, it's like we are in the age where it's like you can get therapy for like not even that expensive if you find the right like online organization or mutual aid, like, or even have the right connections. You have a lot more options than you think in your life to be a good person. You have to actively choose it. There's been a million moments where I could have been hateful as fuck, but then a moment would arise, like, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna help this person out just because, hey, I'm able to, and I have the time, and there's nothing, no reason for me to say no. Or like, hey, this person is downtrodden. Instead of trying to like make their life worse, how about I try to make them think they're worthy of friendship and love and stuff? I care because deep down that's what I wanted back then. I wanted someone to, like, guess what? I had a lot of dark moments, but you know what pulled me out? Like, oh hey, this girl's alone on this field trip. We should like come up to her and talk to her about iCarly because I bet it sucks that she's alone. Or someone being like, hey, I know you're going through a lot with that abusive relationship of yours. I'm so sorry that it's that way. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. People like that and people who actually reached out, they do help. It helps. You need people that reach out to you, and you also need to like love yourself and believe in yourself, but not everyone can, and the world's a fucked up place already. I'm just saying, everyone's got fucked up climates and environments they grow in. Everyone has things they don't know or weren't fed information on. Everyone's a little bit fucked up. It is. And if there's something that I can notice that led to, like, I want to know what led to a person feeling like they needed to do a fork in the road between like murder or and this, or like, like what made Elliot Rogers do what he did, like what support systems did he need so he could have not been that way. And before you go, oh Tamia, do you just side with misogyny all the time? No, I don't. The women victims deserved a lot fucking better. Elliot Rogers is a disgusting, vile piece of shit and a fucking cunt. But let's just say, what if I met someone who seemed like Elliot Rogers did before he got corrupted too hard? Before he decided to shoot and kill those women? If I had someone who was fucked up in front of me and seemed like they could be really harmful to women, I would want to learn what words or actions I can take to make them know, to just have it be known, like, I care about you, dude, and you're cool, but like, you don't need to do this. If anything, this is a noteworthy moment. I remember special ed class. There was this kid. His name was Alex. He was a strange looking child. I'm going to be honest. Like, but that doesn't mean he's not lovable. No, he's entirely lovable. Adorable kid. And, he didn't have friends. He didn't have, like, anyone who cared about him. And he just had online, where, of course, you can be groomed to be racist. And he was very young. He was like 13 or so. And so he probably, like, anytime he was in special ed class, he would usually just say something super anti-Semitic. He would never go full inward hard R, but he would just be like anti-Semitic, like, ooh, fucking Jew. Ooh, you're a fucking Jew. And he would otherwise be quiet. Me, though, I kind of knew, okay, I'm lucky enough where I'm one of the more popular kids in this class. I have the luxury of being like a woman, born one at least, and I knew I took good care of myself and was cute and pretty. And I'm not saying this to be selfish or narcissistic. I'm saying this just because, how do I put this? Sometimes that can be like the butterfly effect. Like, let's say I never met this kid. Who knows what he'd fucking be like if he didn't know what it was like to talk to a woman who was nice to him, or to have a conversation with a woman, or to be added to a friend group. But anytime he started the Jew shit, I just kind of thought to myself, I can teach him the art of trolling and gaslighting, or like, like some silly shit he can do. He doesn't just have to do racism. It's the most lowbrow you can get. You can have other ways to troll people. So I would call out to him in class and be like, hey, Alex. He'd be like, what? I'd be like, huh? Oh, hey, Alex. He said, why'd you say my name? I said, who said your name? What? And I'd talk to my friends. I'd be like, did I say Alex's name? No, you didn't. Yeah. What the hell, Alex? But then I'd kind of troll him. I'd be like, hey, Alex. Alex. Alex, and then he'd turn around and we just pretend not to notice it. Or sometimes I wouldn't even do that. I'd just be like, "Hey, Alex." "What?" "Hi." "Hi." "Hey, Alex." "Hi." And then, like, anytime he said something racist, I would just make it a habit to just keep saying hi back and forth with him over and over until he got off the topic. And it'd be cute because I'd see him blush and smile and stuff. And simply put, then eventually he kind of dropped the racism thing because I guess he just kind of figured, like, like, he could have kept being racist. He could have kept, like, but I knew he was just acting out and trying to get attention because he figured he wasn't going to make friends anyway and wasn't liked anyway. So why should he try to be likable? Like, what was the point? He didn't know how to socialize otherwise. But then eventually I would just, we segued. It was like, "Hey, Alex, how are you doing today? What's good? What's up, buddy?" And hanging out and chilling and joking with him and having other kids join on the jokes. And then he would start laughing and shit too. He was actually a very shy, sweet kid. It was like, trust me, it was like night and day. And then let's just say, like, it was still nice. And then after I graduated, I remember like a year or so went by, I went back to the school. And then at the bus stop, guess who I saw? Alex. And he actually was like he like smiled so big and he was in such a good mood. I was like, "Alex, how are you doing?" He was like, "I'm good." And he was such a warm, welcoming kid. Like, really, like, trust me when I say sometimes people do grow out of it. Like, even my buddy Cameron, he used to be like, he was so close to being fucked up until he went to college, and then now he's one of the most like nicest, sweet little babies you will ever meet. Super kind, super accepting, super nice, and he will always call out like, "Hey." Like, because he even, like, he didn't deny it. He was like, "Yeah, 100% people were trying to groom me into white supremacist beliefs. I don't know what I would have became if I hadn't had that opportunity. So when I can check someone about it, he will check somebody." And that's the important thing. If we can stop something bad from happening, from like some lonely kids falling into the wrong hands and then becoming some of the worst people on this fucking planet, then I want to know how to stop it. That's what I really want to stop. I don't want kids being groomed to be fucked up individuals or harmful or hateful. I don't want that. I want kids to grow up feeling happy and motivated and stuff and safe, because that's what they deserve. And I always hate when I see stories about people who grew up in unsafe environments or around unstable people. It's like, no, you should have not been around your uncle who's a pedophile with unregistered guns. You should, like, CPS should have been involved here. You should have had more access to food. You should have had a better school life. All of this needed to be fixed from the ground up. And so now that I'm able to be aware of it, let's just say if I'm able to be aware of it, I want it to be stopped. And if I ever were to be in a position of power, then at least I could recognize, okay, this is what we need to invest our money and time and attention into, because otherwise we'll just have a bunch more Jeffrey Dahmers on this fucking planet. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to see any more innocent fucking people getting like their heads cut off or harmed or maimed of any degree. Like, that's not what I want. I want people to be happy. And we can always try. You try your best to be happy in a bad situation, and if you see someone else who's struggling, you try to make them happy as well. That's how I believe. Anyway, see ya.